Hello everyone. The following presentation is a brief summary and analysis of Chapter 4 of Oscar Wilde's novel The Picture of Dorian Gray. This chapter opens 1 month after Dorian and Lord Henry meet in Basil Hallward's art studio. While waiting in Lord Henry's home for Lord Henry to arrive, Dorian discusses music with Lord Henry's wife, Lady Victoria. We learn that she is quite an untidy woman, and Lord Henry describes her as foolishly romantic. We can deduce that Lord Henry and Lady Victoria's marriage is not one based on feelings of love, but perhaps could be a merely superficial marriage to satisfy the expectations of upper-class Victorian society. Lord Henry complains about his wife's annoying sentimentality and feelings of love and nostalgia. With this, he tells Dorian that he should never get married. Lord Henry views marriage as an inconvenience. Feelings of love and always having to be concerned for the well-being of another person would be contradictory to a life of hedonism. As I mentioned before, the purpose of marriage in many cases during the Victorian era is to remain in a certain class of society, and oftentimes real love is found outside of the realms of marriage. Lord Henry and his wife are very much unlike a traditional married couple. Dorian is keen to share with Lord Henry that he has fallen in love with a young, beautiful girl named Sibyl Vane. She is an actress who plays a various number of Shakespeare's heroines in a cheap London theatre on the east side of the city. Dorian explains to Lord Henry that he discovered her while wandering through the slums of the east side of London. We can ask ourselves for what reason Dorian, an upper-class man, would be doing in the slums on the east side of London. Perhaps it is Lord Henry's influence that is the reason for Dorian's new, passionate view on life. He has taken Lord Henry's advice to know everything about life, and now Dorian is curious to try everything. The extent of Lord Henry's influence is seen in how Dorian has moved from his realm of beautiful things to the realm of the dirty, poverty-stricken slums. We can note that even though he has exposed himself to some of the ugliness in the world, he still maintains his pursuit of beauty and pleasure. Dorian explains to Lord Henry that despite the cheapness of the theatre and his dislike for the theatre owner, Mr. Isaacs, he decided to go and see a performance. He is so thankful he did because otherwise, he says, he would have missed out on the greatest romance of his life. Lord Henry laughs and asserts that Dorian will have many loves in his lifetime, and that this is what makes him interesting. Lord Henry claims that it is only shallow people who ever only have one love. Dorian finds Sibyl Vane to be the most beautiful girl he has ever seen. He explains to Lord Henry how she has the most beautiful voice and the most exquisite acting skills. Dorian hasn't fallen in love with Sibyl for who she is as a person. Dorian has superficially fallen in love with her art form and her physical appearance. In other words, he has fallen in love with her singing, acting, and her physical beauty. After several trips to the theatre owner, Mr. Isaacs, insisted that Dorian meet Sibyl Vane. Lord Henry asks what kind of relationship Dorian has with Sibyl. Dorian claims that it has been completely innocent, and Dorian calls Sibyl sacred. Dorian explains how the Jewish theatre owner, Mr. Isaacs, invited him backstage and how he couldn't resist meeting Sibyl Vane. Dorian describes Sibyl Vane to Lord Henry as very dainty, naive, and shy. Sibyl Vane is completely infatuated with Dorian, and she gives him the nickname Prince Charming. Dorian explains to Lord Henry that when the theatre owner offered to tell him about Sibyl's background, Dorian refused for his image of her to be tainted because he only cares about the girl he sees on stage. It is clear that Dorian Gray and Sibyl Vane's relationship is purely based on innocence, passion, and facades. This is evident because Dorian doesn't want to know the real Sibyl and only wants to see the characters she is playing on stage. Sibyl is similarly focused on the superficial. Her nickname Prince Charming for Dorian suggests her view of romance is like a fairy tale rather than a realistic idea of true love. Dorian wants Lord Henry and Basil to come with him to see Sibyl perform, and also to free Sibyl from her contract with the theatre owner. Lord Henry is entertained by this development and agrees to go with Dorian and Basil to see Sibyl play Juliet in Romeo and Juliet the next evening. Dorian also mentions to Lord Henry that Basil had the painting framed and has sent it to him. After Dorian leaves, Lord Henry reflects on how Dorian is the perfect psychology experiment. When Lord Henry returns home from dinner, he finds a telegram from Dorian to say that Dorian is engaged to Sibyl Vane. One would expect Lord Henry to berate or criticize Dorian Gray for wanting a relationship with Sibyl Vane. But Lord Henry recognizes that Dorian is only in love with Sibyl for her art and her beauty. It proves to him that his influence over Dorian is working, and he is now keen to see how his influence will affect the outcome of Dorian and Sibyl's relationship. Thank you for watching this presentation on Chapter 4 of The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I will be posting content on the rest of the novel soon.